Um, what I'm doing is creating a master um, mix. That's, as far as I'm concerned, the master mix for that song in perpetuity. So, when they pull out the master tape from the vault of Led Zeppelin, you know, and they all of a sudden decide to remaster it for, whatever, 2002, that was a conscious decision by the band to upgrade and modernize their recording in the modern age, because the original masters were either too low or I don't know, maybe they lost them. I mean the original pressing masters, because you guys may or may not know, but you know all of that stuff had to be archived. So there's a metal master that's created in the mastering studio. I don't know if any of this makes any sense to you guys. I don't really know your background, but in those days, they created a metal master that was a record. That was a vinyl record. Well, it wasn't vinyl; it was acetate. So I guess what I'm trying to say is mastering is a thing that exists for a period of time. In my early days, dance club music and remixes were a big thing. They were just starting out when I first started engineering and assisting, and mastering engineers had to communicate with the mixing engineers about where that vinyl was going to be used, because if it was going to be used in the club, then there could only be a certain amount of time on the vinyl, because the deeper the bass, the less groove space there was. So, and that's a concept you guys can talk about if you don't know what that means. But so, in other words, the actual equalization that the mix engineer and the mastering engineer would include in the song was based on how much time was on the side of vinyl. So if you then bring that into today's standard of now we send MP3s out to our audience, the mastering engineer has a whole different set of things. Before this we had what? We had DVDs. Before that we had cassettes. Each one of those delivery formats had a mastering technique that needed to be dealt with. Okay, that's not a mixing technique. That's not a master tape because it's the same word. I don't know what to call it. But when I create a master, it is it is my version of that song that I think emotionally encapsulates what it needs to be. Now, the mastering engineer's job is to make sure that it is appropriately mastered to mix with other material on a delivery format. So whether that delivery format is iTunes, the radio, Spotify, or whatever, it's the mastering engineer's job to get that to work in that format. Not my job. I mean, of course it's my job too, but my real job is to make sure that emotionally that song does business on every format. Whether it's a $100,000 stereo that some audio file has, if that genre is included in this song, or earbuds, and it's the mastering engineer's job to make sure that the delivery of that works. So maximization is just It's just today's cassette tape duplication system, as far as I'm concerned. There's no, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. Sure, I listen to what my mastering engineer does. I don't want him to suck out the life of something that I've created, but I also rely on the best mastering engineers in the world to do their thing, to make sure that he knows his job. A pro knows his job. He knows his job is to make sure it's right for the delivery system that's in place today. That's what a mastering engineer's job is. And I rely on the best ones to do that job well. As far as level wars, I don't know what that means. That doesn't mean anything to me. Say that again?
Will you work to a compressor or limiter on the two-track?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
No,
And that's from day one.
question.
Do you have a basic setting on that you work to, or you adjust on the fly?
Oh yeah. I adjust for every single song. So, I mean, it's going through my chain is a Chandler, curve bender, equalizer to a pendulum, compressor limiter to a couple of V76 pre's into my Lavery A to D converter, and so it's always going through that stuff, and I just tweak it based on what I hear and what I need. So are the kids asking these questions and giving you these questions?
Yeah.
Because I definitely want to get their questions.
Yeah, I think we. Do you want to do one from the audience? Or?
Has anyone got a burning question?
Just explain that we took questions from the students and fed them
We
to
took
you.
questions before because we knew your time was limited.
Okay.
So we asked all the guys here. We've got about 3 different music courses represented in this room at the moment. Each different levels, different types of music that they're recording. So we just kind of try to feed questions that cover things for everyone.
Okay.
All
right.
How are we doing on time, Tony?
We're almost done. So give me one more question. Make it a good one.
He wants a question, a legendary story from the rock and roll business.
From the road.
From the
Did
road.
you hear that?
I did not.
He said, just as a final thing, if you've got a legendary kind of rock and roll story from the business, an anecdote to guys, because we've been picking your brain early in the morning.
Well, because it's early in the morning, let me think of one quickly. Let's see. I probably have quite a number of them, and most of them shouldn't be talked about on the internet. But one that comes to mind quickly, and is quite poignant. I mixed "One More Chance" by Notorious B.I.G. and the mix took a very long time. I actually worked on it for about 2 weeks because it was a complete remix technically. It was a complete redo. It was basically a new song when it was done, and so there's a lot of production going on, and Big actually had to rewrite everything, but Big never wrote anything down, so he would just sit in the room next to me while I was coming up with my mix, and we rented out the Hit Factory for 2 weeks, which is not a cheap thing. In fact, I even in the interim, I flew to L.A., mixed the Johnny Gill song, and then came back to New York, and sat back in the seat, and it was as if I hadn't left. Like I think they had just been in the room, like.
Oh. As obviously the lawyers put a stop to that one. Well, he's offline. It's his lawyer, man. His lawyer's just sitting there with it. No.
Don't tell us. Disclaimer.
And what happened was,
Well, that's Tony Maserati, ladies and gentlemen. I'll shoot the text somewhere. So, kind of.
Well, let's just say thank you and give a round of applause. Thanks, a round of applause.
You might want to finish the story.
I had the story.
I want to hear the end of it.
He's blatantly going to finish it.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. So we heard that you returned. It's like they never left. They've just been sitting in the room doing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's as if I never left. Like I think my Coke can that I had left on a table next to me was left half full, exactly the way I left it when I went to L.A. and I came back 3 days later. It was still there. But so it was time for Big to do his rhyme and do that. So essentially what he did was he just sat next to me, and he was rolling blunts and smoking, and I didn't know he was really paying much attention to what was going on. But he just sat there, I was just rolling tape around. I was working while he was sitting there. And then probably about 3 days later, he said, "All right, get the mic up." And of course I already had the mic up, and Brian, one take, top to bottom, bada boom, bada bing. No paper, no nothing. There was nothing written down. And then he, finished, put his coat on and said, "All right, I'm out of here." And he left. I don't know that we actually spoke much other than me asking him whether or not he wanted lunch. So it was kind of fun and interesting, and one of those rock and roll stories that, there's chaos going around at all times in the studio in those days, because, Faith Evans is there with her kid, and I'm holding on to her kid while Faith is doing a vocal, and I'm punching in with her child, like trying to touch everything and get to mommy, and and there's people running in and out, phone calls and whatnot going on, and vocals being done and production being done, and Big is just sitting there the whole time, memorizing what he's going to do, knocking it out in his head, and it was just hilarious the way he just walked in there, did it, put his coat on, left. I couldn't believe it. I just thought, my God, this guy really is the real thing. Anyway, so maybe that's my rock and roll story for today.
That's perfect, Tony. Thank you. Our cousins over here across the pond really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Cool, man. Well, I'm glad I could be of service, and Tristan, make sure you come back and visit me when you're here.
You bet. There'll be a bottle of scotch waiting for you.
Sweet. What?
Bye, buddy. Rock and roll. Thanks, man. See you in LA.
Yeah. Take care. Bye, fellas.